SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
We realize that innovation doesn't happen if the people are not concerned. So how can we get concern built into our collaborative teams? And what is this concern? So, as usual, IIT students are very, very keen. In fact, I built this, I call it the Chakku's 7 concerns of innovation. And we build the 7 concerns because my students at IIT always want formulas. When I give them a whole semester course, we move from one concern to another concern and work on wicked problems. If you're interested, you can go through a YouTube channel where it's called ID 401 lectures, where you can see ID 401. The students are working on very, very wicked problems using these 7 concerns of innovation to take things forward. So let me explain these concerns to you from an interesting project I did for India Post. After my PhD, after my collaborative innovation model, I said, let me apply this model to the toughest domain. And this toughest domain was a government domain. I said, let me work with India Post. So here, we took it as a student project, and we worked with India Post very, very closely to make a letterbox. And the only one-line brief was that it should not rust. You could see how the post box rusts a lot. So the first concern is the cause. The concern to solve a problem. If you don't have that cause in your mind, it's impossible. For example, when I started the Z-Line petrol pump, the cause was to develop a low-cost, high-quality, high-feature petrol pump. And I stood for that cause, the whole company stood for the cause, and that's how we could make innovation happen. So the first C is the cause. The second C is the context. Like the way I was talking about the context of L&T, the context of Midco, the large enterprise of Larsen & Toubro, the type of synergy they have, we need to understand context. And when I went to India Post, I was shocked to see the context. The lowest division clerk is the one who opens the post box. Most of the times the lock is rusted, and they actually sort of, they use a close by stone to hammer the lock so that the rust comes off and the lock opens. You don't need rocket science to study this. As soon as we studied, we said the lock should not rust. We went to Godrej and got a rust-proof lock. It doesn't take any effort. So that type of aspects are very critical. So the second C is the context, where we say that the context is understanding the user and the scenario. The user and the scenario becomes the important second C, the context. The third C, which is the comprehension, is arriving at design insights. This is very, very important in design, where you have to arrive at design insights and why such a thing happens. Why do letterboxes rust? Why do they take letterboxes? Where are letterboxes manufactured? Why do they use raw material which is bad in letterboxes? What are the costs involved in the letterboxes? What are the quality standards they're using? A lot of issues are there. And when the letterboxes are actually when you water ingresses the letterboxes, what do postmen do? Because you can actually lose your address on the letterboxes, and it's quite a important thing. So the design insights becomes our third C, the comprehension. And the fourth C is the check. So once I've understood the cause, the context, and the comprehension, where I've done thorough analysis, thorough design, data collection, you can come up with the check, where we make a blueprint for design. I really don't now know where to go. I need to have a rust-proof pump. I need to use materials which are rust-free. I need to use materials which are sort of contemporary. I have to have robust manufacturing, because people vent their anger. on the letterboxes in the field when there are writes. So I need to have a robust manufacturing letterbox. I need to also make the letterbox user convenience, where we can see how the user is. Even a small girl should be able to post a letter even if her height is small. Then we also need to have a small box and large box. We call it the modular design. And then last but not the least, though this was not a brief, we said you to create a unique identity. It has to look good. So the unique identity also is a very important checkpoint. And once you make a check, you have a blueprint for design, and it's called the product brief also most of the times. So now the next important aspect is conception. So we built a lot of sketches. The sketches and ideas were combined to make clusters. From clusters, we made concepts. You can see the 3 concepts over here. The first concept here is the concept where you have the full sheet metal construction. The second concept, the red one, which you see on the right in the middle, is the concept where you use plastics molding in a big way. You could use rotor molding, you can move injection molding. And the third one is a combination of metal bottom and top in plastic. So these 3 combinations are the ones which are working on the concepts. So once your conception is ready, you go to the 6th C, that's the crafting. And from the innovation pivots, we had to go to the best manufacturing. I didn't even consider that I can go anywhere else. Our whole design journey was exactly from point of view of using the best materials, using the best technologies. So we went to Jindal manufacturing, went to the best laser cutting machines and the best CNC machines, and produced a box which would look very, very good and very professional, and also solve all the problems. So that's the crafting. We built prototypes, we built pilot. You can see the pilot production happening in Jindal factory over there. And then we built the first lot of 20 order had come to IIT Bombay. And we built those 20, and we put all over the country. And we were very fortunate that during the 150-year celebration of India Post, the secretary and the ministers actually inaugurated our box as part of the connection, which is the 7C. You need to connect back with your user. That's the very important aspect in innovation. If your connection, for example, the oval pump couldn't go to production, mass production, so innovation is not complete. But if you're, whereas in the Z-line pump and the bullet pump and the show fill, it became a runaway success where large quantities are in the field and the users are delighted with the product, then we can say that innovation has happened. So here, for example, we have the 7C, which is the connection, and it went through. But a very interesting thing happened. As soon as they launched this as part of the celebration, they gave us an order of 200 numbers and asked us to produce it. That was a very big challenge for us. So we actually collaborated with 4 companies. We collaborated with Hilti for the bolts. We collaborated with Godrej for the locks. We collaborated with G Plastics for the Giloy material, which is the top in red color, and we collaborated with Jindal to actually talk about the to work on the stainless steel, and the manufacturing was done by Jindal Architecture. And we used the best design. You can see, I've become an expert on sheet metal because of my L&T experience, and we had some beautiful design where you don't see any embellishments, you don't see any like welding marks, and the product became an icon for their 150 years. And after the 200 order came, we supplied these 200 all over the country. And then a very interesting thing happened. So that's what I say when the 7C happened and the connection happens, and this was a pilot of 200 number. When you need 2.5 lakh letterboxes, 200 is of course a pilot. And this pilot, we failed miserably. The people in the rural areas, because they sent to all the areas where there was request, and then they were not able to identify this box. And that was a very, very interesting learning for us. And when that learning happened, I'd like to show you a quick sort of video animation here on how this feedback loop happened. So in the feedback loop, you can see how we are networking across the 3 teams, networking across the stages of development. And then the biggest input from my research was that across all the stages, the user feedback loop is the most critical loop in the innovation cycle. And that also was a very important learning from our research. The letterbox design was done with all the ingredients of the collaborative model, because I'd finished my PhD by that time. But somewhere down the line, we were quite complacent with user testing. Till we did pilot production, we could not know what was wrong. And once we did pilot production, We fell flat on our face where people were not able to recognize our boxes, and the secretary ministry was extremely unhappy. All the user feedback we got locally, newspapers talked great about our product. They said, the past imperfect, future perfect, that type of, great, publicity we got in newspapers. And most of the city people actually liked the box because they could relate it to the logo. Whereas 95% of the population could not identify the box as a letterbox because it's a legacy product. Learned the hard way. The user feedback loop is the most critical loop in the innovation cycle. You may have a lot of good case studies where people say, nahi, how will the user know what's happening? It's not true. Even for the Walkman example, they say the user never wanted a Walkman. It's not true. You actually, saw the users jogging with music and then you designed the thing. So I'm not talking about the user feedback from point of view of surveys and market research, but we're talking about user feedbacks from point of view of, understanding people, showcasing your product to them, making them use the product and, taking things forward. So here we are. So we went back to square one. Our cause was there. We wanted to design a product which was very, very maintenance free. It would not rust. And we had that product in hand, but we failed. And we also had this great look where we had the fifth point where we said it has to be robust manufacturing. It had to be very, very good. It has to create a new entity for post. In fact, what is surprising is the Chief Postmaster General, to the everlasting credit, he did say that we are an, organization is growing. We have our own jet now, and we would like our product to be modern. So we had built that modern product, but unfortunately, most of the dustbins also are, like stainless steel, and you could easily get confused with dustbins. And the letterbox was always red, and that red perception could not be warded off. With that in mind, we went back to square one, but this time, once beaten, the secretary was very strong. She said, no, I want the round shape. So look at the first image. We had to make a round shape, and this was exhibited during the Commonwealth Games. But we didn't leave our thing. We said the round shape doesn't have the right contemporary manufacturing. It is not able to save the right amount of material. Whereas, so we, worked out with them, and it also, doesn't have that differentiation. So we went back and we worked very hard, and we came up with this sort of product again, which was just using stainless steel, but low nickel. So the cost is less. And then got it powder coated red, and then this became, and then we changed the top. We had to change the top. It's like metaphor of hat for the old boxes, and we got the top changed. And this letterbox was, recently, inaugurated by, the Prime Minister during an exhibition in IIT Bombay, and hopefully you'll see these letterboxes in the field within a few months.